What is going on YouTube? This is Knaftastic Rodney, you know me. Going to show you a few of the Demko AD20.5 Titanium scale replacement. I have done all the upgrades to these now, which include the Knaftanium engraving on the interior of one side, the D-shaped pivot, which is on the show side only, and the perimeter contour that goes around the knife all the way around. There is no lightning pockets or weight relief that I'm doing yet. I am working on a process that will either be pockets or an internal type frag pattern style weight relief, but that's not progressed yet into something that I'm able to offer. But I am offering the putter pattern option, a frag, varying in sizes of frag, and another pattern I'm working on, which is almost sort of like dimpling, but it has a combination of squares and diamonds and arcs. So I'm thinking it will be interesting, but it has not come to fruition yet. But I basically just wanted to show a real quick of the mods. I'm going to be assembling a couple. I'm going to try to assemble one here so y'all can see how easy it is. This is a mod that's sort of a purplish blue. It changes color every time I touch it. This is going out tomorrow to my buddy Jeremy, and this is a knife that he supplied me. This was the I can't remember, one of the stores exclusive. It had the green grivery, and I dyed the backspacer purple. These scales are made to be used with the factory backspacer. I'm getting more scales cut, and I'm making the backspacers. Should have some in process this weekend, and another order possibly going out next week. So if I have not contacted you, don't worry. I'm going to make sure I get something to you for the ones who have shown interest. While it has been surprisingly a popular mod, it's not as popular as I thought, but that's okay. I'm a one-man operation. I can't keep up because I work a full-time job. But that's all good. So real quick, let me show you, basically with an assembly, we have a sort of a setup. We do from the back side first. We have the pivot, or from the show side, because we're going to work the D side pivot out. So basically you slide the pivot in. It's a good fit. It's not loose, it's not tight. I tried to keep these tolerances close enough that it would be easy to assemble and disassemble. So it takes a little bit of finesse here and there if you're not familiar with taking a knife apart and putting it back together. But once you do it once or twice, I'm sure it will fall right into play. Also, another thing for you guys that need to realize, that it's not a showstopper, but where this shark lock slides back and forth, as it slides back and forth, there's no pressure digging into these frames, but it might create a little shiny spot on either side of these scales once it's been ran and operated. But it does not affect the function. If there's ever any issue from it, please reach out to me and I'll take care of it. But I know there's not going to be, because there are other knives like the Riot XO is a sliding style knife, and it's metal sliding on titanium, and it marks itself. It's just part of the way it's designed and made. And because I was going linerless on these, you have that shark fin that actually slides on top of the titanium. Also, the factory backspacer, what I was telling you about earlier, how these work, they have these little guides, and that's what these holes here are for, the smaller holes. So you take your little backspacer and lay in there to where it clicks into place, and as you can see, it's not falling off. It's in the little holes. My pivot fell out though, so let me put the pivot back in. Alright, so basically we have that, and then I take the little D-shaped spacers for the backspacer that slide a particular way, and there's also pockets machined for those spacers to go into the scales, so we don't have any issues with it going together. And once you get it in hand and see how it works, and of course you can always revert back to a video, maybe this one or another one if someone else does one. I am sending a couple sets out to some various channels for review and show and tell, basically, so maybe you'll see something on their channels. Okay, so basically you have the hardware for the backspacer, you have the pivot, you have the blade stop pin, you have the shark fin. Now there are recessed areas, and it really doesn't matter. We have one side that has a slight groove in it and one side that doesn't. They're both the same, and I designed it to where they should go together either way. But whenever I set them, I try to match one way or the other. So on this one, we're doing all the grooves down. And basically that's pinned together like that. And then you have the spring for the action on the sliding mechanism. Be very careful when you're taking this in and out, because it will pop out and fly out. But as you can see, it's laying there now and it's not coming out. So basically the knife is ready to put together, minus the blade. And I'll just grab a blade here and a couple washers. Now these parts are all made in the USA. Now as far as the washers, the skiff bearings, the titanium, I am buying it and sourcing it from US retailers, but I cannot confirm where they are purchasing their items from. So this could be made from import or domestic parts, but all the work to these is being done by me in the good old state of North Carolina. So they're USA made, and I try to support other USA companies, even though I support many Chinese companies and foreign companies, because I buy and purchase foreign knives. So, but with that being said, I'm trying to provide some info so you know what's going on. And there's the skiff bearings. I buy these straight from Skiff. This is the Rocket Glide rings. Now the scale sets that go out to the other company, to the other YouTube channels, are not going to be knives. They're just going to be the scale sets. So the only knife that I'm sending out in a complete set is to the one my buddy Jeremy. Alright, so now we have the washer and we have the bearing in place. We'll take the blade and slide this back. I'm not going to see, I just slid it back and the spring popped out. See, that's why you got to be careful. Luckily I caught it in my hand when I slid it. So there we go, that's locked in place. That's locked in place. Now we take the other bearing and the other washer, basically like any other knife. Get it lined up. Like I said, I'll be taking this part again, so I'm not going to put any oil in it. And basically you just take it, and I'm going to slide it over here just so I can see a little better. And you just sort of wiggle it back and forth until you get everything to fall in place. And literally, just like that, you can see that it's together and pinned and lined up. So now I will take the pivot screw, which I believe from the factory the pivot screw is visible from the show side, but the way I did this, the pivot is the non-tooled side on the show side. That's the way I like it. I'm sure you can do it either way, but the pivot is D-shaped only on the D-shaped side, on the show side. Alright, so I'm not going to add any clip screws. I'm not going to put the clip on here. Well, I reckon I can. So I'm going to go ahead and take one of these screws here and line it up. Let me get these screws out. They're hard to get out of this little tray. Two of the screws are longer to allow for the clip. Okay, and then you have the rest of the screws that are short. So all the short screws go on this side. And basically everything lines up real good. You just got to make sure you don't get the screw cross-threaded. And what I like to do is sort of back it off a turn till I hear it click or I feel it click, and then I just thread it in. And it makes for a fairly easy assembly. Okay. Bear with me, guys. I've been trying to get a video out, and it's just like my thought process and so forth has just not been there, and it is what it is, you know. So all these screws are set up to be recessed. I don't know why that screw's being a booger. Sometimes you just gotta look at the screw and say, hey, act right. Because sometimes screws don't want to act right. They just don't want to do what they're supposed to do. There we go. It didn't want to go a minute ago, and it was just being a bear. And again with a screw, like I said, when you get one threaded in and it doesn't want to start, all you have to do is back it off and reverse, basically unscrew it until you feel or hear an audible click. And then you can tell the thread is engaged where it needs to be engaged at. And then you can thread it in like normal. That will almost always keep you from stripping a thread out. So as you can see, this is going together pretty good. Get everything fairly snug so we don't feel any rattle. Now, like I said, I have took these screws, and all these counterbores are flush. So there's no protrusion of the screw heads on either side except for the ones on the pocket clip. And blade play is good. Now granted, after you adjust the knife, you may have to adjust it and snug it up a little bit, because sometimes it doesn't always go together perfectly snug the first time. So what I like to do is tighten it up tight to where it's almost too stiff to really work, and then I back it off just a little bit. And you can Loctite these because they do have the detent D-shaped pivot, not detent. They have the D-shaped pivot, which will allow you to use Loctite. But that's it, guys. That is the center down the center and shark lock. Now granted, this is running on no oil. Snug it up just a little bit to get it just right. Reverse flick. And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. And yeah, that's all I got. Thanks. God bless.